quick update. Really excited to get the season underway. It feels like we've been practicing against each other for forever, and with the extended training camp, it'll be nice to finally test our mettle against someone not wearing burnt orange and white. Injury updates: Chris Brown, ankle, will not play. Eric Cuffey, with a forearm fracture, will probably not play until the following week. Terrell Cooney slipped on the stairs and sprained his ankle, so it's not too bad. We're expecting him, so would be probable, I guess. And then Andrew Fitzgerald and Garrett Thomas are still a couple weeks away. So with that, questions?
Coach, you talk about training for chaos, training for adversity, and with what's going on in this state right now with the disaster, how difficult is the task to get guys to focus when they have big things going on back home?
Yeah, I mean, we've got 21 or so players from the Houston area whose families and homes have been affected. Nothing disastrous, at this point in terms of our guys have checked in and everybody is safe. I think, the fact that we do have this bit of an escape to come to the facility and kind of get away from the real world for a few hours is welcome. But, we're, especially now that I know that our players' families are safe, what our guys are going through is nothing compared to, what the residents of the city of Houston and the surrounding areas are going through.
Coach, we see by the depth chart Shane is a starter for Saturday. Is there a plan for Sam?
Shane is the starter today.
Starter today,
Yes.
Pardon me, Coach. Shane is a starter today. Is there a plan to play both quarterbacks Saturday morning against Maryland?
Myself and Coach Beck talked about it again today. If we played today, we would, let Shane play the game, and he's had a really, really good last few days of practice. So, but again, around here, just like if the Z receiver goes out and has 3 really bad practices, then the backup's going to probably play a little bit more. So we'll know more towards the end of the week. But if we were to play today, Shane would play the whole game as long as he's playing well.
Thank you.
Tom, I asked you this at Media Day, and I'll ask it again. After a month of training camp, does this team know how to win?
I don't know. I know they've been trained. Now when the bullets fly and adversity hits, that's the one thing I don't know right now is, if we have a couple 3-and-out drives to start the game, how are we going to respond? If we give up an early touchdown, how are we going to respond? And I know how they've been trained, and I have a lot of confidence in the way that they're trained and in the way that they've responded to that training and taken it to heart. But again, putting it in practice in front of 105,000 people and with a formidable opponent such as Maryland, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And so I think we will respond well to adversity, and I think we will know how to win. But again, that's remains to be seen.
Tom, I'm sure you care a great deal too about your former Houston players, their families, that community that you knew so well. Was yesterday tough for you to watch, and are you grateful that you guys can help out in some way?
Yeah, really, really difficult to watch. The city of Houston is very near and dear to mine and my family's hearts, not just from our time at U of H, but really, I was at Rice for 2 years, and, Sienna Plantation where we lived. We have former neighbors that are being evacuated because of the levees down there in Missouri City. And even in my time at Sam Houston State 4 years in Huntsville, is not too far from Houston. We considered Houston home as well then too. So really, really difficult. We're working on some plans right now with our team in terms of collecting items that we can send over there. Talked to J.J. Watt this morning via text. We're going to try to help him and his campaign, both from a team standpoint and myself and Michelle. And so it's hard to watch, especially when there's so many loved ones that are there and affected by it. But we're going to try to do our best, the Herman family as well as Texas football, to put action into place.
How do you think Major's handling this?
As good as can be. We talk a couple times a day through all of this, and I think for a guy that's never been a head coach or has only been a head coach for 8-9 months, to be thrown this big of a curveball in your first season would be tough for anyone. But he's handling it as good as possible.
Tom, can you talk about the running back depth chart? It says Kyle Porter or Chris Warren, and what you've seen at tight end with Garrett Gray and backed up by Cade Brewer.
Yeah, the running back spot, had Kyle not missed the extended lengths of practice that he did with the shoulder injury, I think, he would have been in that top spot by himself. But that's a credit to Chris too. When he was given the opportunity to go in there and take those reps, he seized that opportunity and he played really, really well. So I feel a lot better today than I did a week, 10 days ago about that position. And it's nice to see Kirk Johnson in the fold there as well. And then the tight end position is one that, again, to do the things we want to do in the run game, we gotta play with a tight end. And when Andrew Beck went down, that was a pretty devastating blow to us. But Garrett Gray has gotten bigger and stronger. He's learning the position currently. I mean, he still has only played the position a short amount of time. But a guy, Cade Brewer comes in and comes from an extremely successful program at Lake Travis, and one that he played in an offense very similar to what we expect out of our tight end. So a lot of the things that we're asking him to do are not foreign to him. It's the foreignness has been the speed of the game and the strength of and size of the people that he's blocking. But he's a really, really smooth route runner. He's got great ball skills, and right now he's serviceable in the run game.
Tom, you sent a nice note to Puneef Ford's high school coach after you named him a captain. A lot of emotion coming out of that area after you sent it. What kind of camp did he have, and what message does that send to his teammates to see that kind of reaction?
Well, I think it sends a message to anybody in this great game that I don't know. I've been here 9 months, Cedric. I don't know that I've heard Puneef Ford say more than 10 words. But he's the hardest practicing player on our team. It's not even close. And we've got some hard practicing dudes, but when you see a guy that's 5'11", 310 pounds doing the things that he does day after day after day after day, he was the second leading vote getter actually in that captain draw. And so that just tells you, I think it opened my eyes a little bit too, that what we value in leadership as coaches is probably a little bit different than what the players value. And it's very obvious that the players value guys that go out, practice as hard as he does, and only speaks when necessary. And but when he does, the room stops and people listen.
Tom, when you were sitting over there in November and being the head coach at Texas, you knew it was a road ahead before this week would come. Is there a certain emotion heading into game week now that it's here?
Not really. It's been a long 9 months. So we've had a lot of things happen to us over the span of those 9 months. And so I'm actually relieved a little bit to be back in the offensive meeting room, to be back in the staff room, to be preparing for an opponent. doing a lot less media things and to get back to coaching football and preparing to win a game. And so I think relief and excitement are probably the two emotions.
Coach, now that you have an opponent, what do you know about Maryland, and how are they going to test Texas?
Well, I know that they went to a bowl game last year in DJ Durkin's first year. I've got a ton of respect for him. Did when he was, he was one of the best defensive coordinators in the country for a long time, and for him to get his hands on a program like that, I think, the sky is the limit for him and what he's able to accomplish there. A team that was a bowl team last year that is very veteran on defense. I think 7 seniors, 9 seniors, 7 returning starters, something like that. So there's a lot of experience on that defensive front, and especially the middle linebacker, I think he's wearing number 1 this year, wore number 23 last year. Carter, that's right. It's a team that went last year in 13 games, had 37 sacks. I mean, that's almost 3 a game. And then their defensive end, who moved from outside linebacker. I think their whole defense changed numbers too, which is very confusing. But he's now wearing number 6, and I don't want to butcher his name, but Annie Bonham, I believe, is his name. Heck of a player. On offense, if the Pigram kid is who they pen as their starter at quarterback, then that's a pretty big added dimension on that side of the ball. They've already shown themselves to be a really good running offense in terms of Harrison and Johnson in the backfield. I think they averaged over 200 yards rushing a game last year, and now you add a dynamic runner at quarterback, and that is going to cause you fits. So I think if we can neutralize their front 6 or 7 on offense and keep them away from our quarterback and move the line of scrimmage a little bit in the run game, and then if we can stop the run, those are going to be our 2 biggest points of emphasis to win the game.
Tom, as you look at this depth chart and kind of, especially the offensive skill players, you see a lot of sophomores and freshmen, and even someone like Garrett Gray Jr. has limited experience. Are these guys playing above their age, or do you expect some growing pains?
Oh, I hope there won't be any growing pains. I'm excited, for the future, certainly. And I think it doesn't matter how old you are, and how much experience you have. If you've been in our program for the last 9 months, you're going to be ready to play a college football game if we jog you out there. And so I am excited about the future, knowing that there are a lot of guys that are going to play that are youthful.
Hey, Coach. As you get ready, go ahead.
We're going to do this. I don't like that anymore. All right. Hello.
Do I move that for you? Or?
There we go.
You okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That was really awkward. I was like sitting like this. Really awkward.
I'll let you take, like Ricky Bobby, you don't know what to do with your hands.
Yes.
As you get ready for the upcoming season, I would like to know, do you have goals that you're setting for this season? And I would just like to know what would a successful season look like, to you?
Yeah, never wins and losses. I think especially in a first year like this, where we're just trying to develop and instill our culture and our way of doing things. But I think success would be if we play discipline, if we protect the football on offense, and when people watch us, either opponents or when the casual fan watches us, if they can say, wow, I've never seen Texas play that hard. Wow, I've never seen Texas play that physical. Wow, I've never seen Texas play with that much passion and energy and accountability to their teammates and coaches, then we're going to be on our road to success. Now, how many wins that translates into this year, and if we can stay healthy, and there's a lot of different things, but if we can say that we're the hardest playing, hardest hitting most accountable team on the football field each and every Saturday will have a chance to win, and that'll be success.
Coach, you've seen these guys for a month now in pads, pretty much close to a month. What's the strength of your team, Coach? We know that tight end is a inexperienced, but what do you think is the strength and what's your weakness on this team going into the first game?
Excitingly, I think our strength on both sides of the ball is the line, offensive and defensive lines. I think we still need to find a consistent, productive right tackle, but those other four guys are, maybe the national championship year at Ohio State that I was a part of, that might be the only other offensive line that, could compare with these guys, and so I'm excited to see them play. And then the defensive line has been a very welcome surprise considering where I thought we were at that position in January. Charles Menahue has exerted himself as kind of the fourth starter there, and we're getting quality play from guys like Jamari Chisholm and Gerald Wilbon and Taquan Graham, and so obviously those guys aren't going to be 60 play a game guys. We'll rely on Puna and Chris Nelson, Charles and Malcolm for the 50 plays a game. It'll be the other 20 that those guys can go in and hopefully make a difference when they're in. Weakness, I mean, just depth. We're not good enough. Our line, we're like maybe 3 deep at our inside linebacker. Not 3 deep, like we have 3 guys I would trust in a game for the 2 inside linebacker spots, and 2 guys for the outside linebacker spot, and so we just once you get past Devontae Davis at corner, if he's our 3rd, then a true freshman is our 4th. Not to say that Josh Thompson and those guys aren't capable of it. We're just we're very developmental on once you get past our starters, and so we're going to need to stay healthy.
Tom, from that first meeting you had, from that first spring practice, is there any way to, I don't know if you can quantify it, but at least the change that you've seen in that football team from that early start here in your mind, from what you've seen?
Yeah, I think there's to say 180 would, I don't know if that'd be too exaggerated, but they're definitely in line with what we want and what we need. And I've talked about the difference between compliant and committed, and I do believe that these guys, there's a lot of them now that are doing these things because they have conviction that it's the right way to do things, rather than just, hey, I don't want to get in trouble, so let's do these things. And so, and again, bad habits rear their ugly head. And when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, you're dealing with many years, a lot of times, of some bad habits. And so, the good thing is when they come up now, it's not just coaches that are seeing them and squashing them. It's other players that are doing it, and so that means that they bought in and that they know. And so I'm excited to see them play on Saturday. Like I said, the biggest test is when we face some adversity. How do we respond the way that we're trained, or do we respond by falling back into bad habits? And that'll be a big crossroads for us to go through.
You mentioned the weakness of depth. That's obviously not the case at wide receiver. How great was that competition to watch and kind of grow in those positions?
Yeah, it's still going on, as you can see by a lot of the oars.
And little Jordan and Reggie to come as far as they've come, just those 2 guys.
Yeah, really. I think both of them redshirted last year, if that's accurate. Some 2 completely different slot receivers, where obviously little Jordan's a big fluid athlete that is going to pose some size matchups on safeties and linebackers, where Reggie's a lot more elusive and explosive. So really excited for those two guys to, go from where they were redshirted as freshmen, which obviously I think it's very clear, as those two guys have proven, that redshirting as a freshman is not a death sentence, and playing on the scout team for a year or two is not a death sentence, and especially when you're deep and talented at a position like we are. But yeah, the battles will continue. I mean, that Z receiver, it's who's ever having the better practice, with between Gerard, Devin, and John Burt, and then one of my favorite guys on this team right now is Dorian Leonard, and although Colin we feel like is special, I feel like you really don't lose a whole lot when you put Dorian in there, and Dorian's been productive the last couple years in college, and so excited to see what those two guys can do at that boundary receiver position.
Yeah, Coach, with y'all hosting Houston and TCU with what they're doing for Rice and what's happening in other places across the state and high schools, what does it say about the sport of football and sports in general in times like these and what it can mean for people?
Yeah, I mean, it's the melting pot, right? I mean, this is, we don't see color. We don't see, wealth status. We don't see religion. We don't see anything in the locker room. All we see is, do you got my back or not? And can I trust you? And it doesn't matter, black, white, brown, Asian, poor, rich, Christian, Muslim, none of it matters in the locker room. And so it's really, really cool to see times like this. If there is a silver lining, I think it is that society can take a big lesson from what we do every day in sports, and that's, we trust people and we accept them and we work really hard with them and for them to help them achieve their goals. And to see all of the different examples have some light shed on them, in times of trouble like we're going through in Houston, it's at least comforting to know that we haven't lost that part of our society where sports is, a giant melting pot of people with no agendas.
Tom, can you compare your excitement, anticipation for this game to your first GA game back in '99? And after that game, did you kind of feel like bad luck that because you lost and want to distance yourself from
Which
the
one? What
punt protection
was
game?
that? The NC State
game?
one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny because I wasn't too nervous. I'm as a GA, you chart plays. I mean, but I actually screwed something up in that game. I cost us a timeout, and I'll never forget. I don't know if I've even told this story or not. So my job was to be the 2-point, whether we're going for 2 points or not on the extra point. And so what I do is I do the math before a series would start, and then I would put a little 2 or a 1 in front of Greg Davis so that he knew, hey, this is a 2-point drive or a 1-point drive. Well, the score had been kind of weird, like I think because of maybe a safety or something like that. Well, they kick off to us, and Victor Ike takes it to the house. And I haven't done the math yet on whether this was a 2-point drive or a 1-point drive. And so it was some funky score, and Mac Brown is calling to Greg Davis saying, is it 2 or 1, 2 or 1? And he's looking at me, is it 2 or 1, 2 or 1? And I'm like, and I just froze, and we called timeout, actually. And so I cost us a timeout, and this shows you what a great man Greg Davis was. He could have thrown me under the bus like nobody's business, because Mac Brown, after the 2-point, we actually, I think, wound up going for 2. Can't remember if we got it or not, but Mac Brown, kind of chastised Greg a little bit and said, hey, we can't do that anymore. We can't use a timeout. That's unacceptable, so on and so forth. And Greg Davis could have said, well, yeah, this young GA here screwed it up, and all he said was, yes, sir. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. And so I'll never forget that night because of that, because I cost us a timeout.
Tom, it seems like since you've gotten here, almost since day one, physicality has been something that you and your staff have really harped on. Have you seen sort of that team-wide transformation that you looked for when you got here, just maybe looking back at the first spring practice to this whole last week? Are they where you want them to be physically?
They're close. They're light years ahead of where they were. They embrace full pads. They embrace live contact. It's not, you know, in the spring. This is real. Like, I mean, I heard people say, "Oh, we have to be in full pads today." Like, what? You have to be? No, you get to be. You get to be in full pads. You get to tackle people. You get to hit people. And so there's been a marked shift in the way that they look at even just the act of having a full padded, full live practice, and that's the start. You know, do we need to wrap up more on defense? Yes. Do we need to finish blocks more on offense? Yes. But we're getting there, and at least it's not a have to anymore like it was.
Yeah, Tom, a lot's been written and said about baking cakes around here. You know, I know you're ranked and you know it's just a guess, but do you feel like you have top 25 talent, and does it just need top 25 coaching?
I think our starting 22 could play with anybody in the country. Now, would we win every game? I didn't say that. We can play, if we play to our abilities, with anybody in the country. I've said this since the spring, so there's no changing of stances. I'm concerned about our depth. I am, and so whether that means we have championship talent or top 25 talent, I think was a question. Maybe, you know, in the starting 22, but certainly not top to bottom as you would like. So we're getting there. We can't go on the waiver wire. We can't, you know, sign some free agents. They're ours, and we got to develop them.
Coach, I know Shane Buechele is your starter as of Monday. What would it take for Sam Ehlinger to see playing time, whether it's on Maryland or this season? What would he have to do in order to get on the field?
I think it would take Shane not playing well and not practicing well. Like I said, I mean, you're only as good as your last practice, and that's a big deal around here. And if we're going to hold the rest of the team to that standard, we need to hold the quarterback to that as well. And so I think, you know, Shane's in control of that. He goes out and he practices well every day, then he'll continue to start and play the game. If he stumbles and opens the door a little bit in practice, or stumbles and opens the door during a game, then we'll have to evaluate it at that point. But it would be Shane not having the types of practices that he's had the last few days, which have been really good.
Tom, going in the stadium for the first time, you've been at Denny's, you've been at Whitaker, the sacred ground of DKR. Do you sense the players, that's part of the excitement, the 1-0 every day, but 1-0 on Saturday would be much bigger and a chance to kind of have everything come together inside the stadium?
Yeah, we talked Saturday that, you know, we're a week away from showing the world what we've been doing the last 9 months and how hard we've been working. And, you know, Peyton Manning said something to our team when he spoke to him. He was talking about one of the hardest working guys he's ever been around was Marvin Harrison. And he said, you know what, they pay me to practice. The games I'd play for free. The games are fun. And that's the way it should be around here. The practices are really, really hard. And preparation is really, really hard. And so much so that the games are fun. But let's make no mistake, the fun is in the winning, too. And this game is inherently fun, but it's a lot more fun when you win. And they understand that, and they understand that we'll be able to cut it loose and play the way that we're trained to play and have a good time doing it. But in order to really have fun on Saturday, we got to win. Thank you.